We've started phasing projects differently. Like we'll have a second floor done, ready to be punched out, and we'll rip it off while we're still working on the first floor and kind of working our way from the back of the house towards the front of the house. And that kind of allows us to pack more trades on top of each other on some of these larger projects. It seemed to be an effective way to try to accelerate or make up for some of that lost time.
So welcome to the podcast today. Very excited to have Robert on with us. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Brad. Peace. What's up, everybody?
So Robert Scheffy, I mean, you've been a builder for that we've been connected for a long time on social media. Had the pleasure of meeting you. I think the first time I met you might have been Vegas. Johnny Horahan introduced us. This was pre-COVID, so this was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was like 2018,
Yeah,
2017, maybe.
yeah, somewhere in there. And I think that's the first time I met in person. And Robert has an incredible business in Louisiana and owner, founder. We were saying offline, janitor, project manager, estimator. Like many of us small business owners, you tend to wear a lot of hats. So
That's right. And you forgot counselor, marriage counselor. We do a lot of hand holding and a lot of clients having a bad day. Sometimes it gets taken out on us. So
maybe
we
you
got to
start
learn how.
when you started your company. And it's probably for me, I had no idea. I know you probably weren't prepared for this question, Robert, but as you've evolved in your career, looking at the emotional side of it, the emotional connection, you mentioned counselor, which is kind of funny. I mean, we have a catchphrase that we're saving marriages one house at a time, right? That's one of our clients say.
Mhm.
How has that played a role? Just that relationship aspect of the clients and understanding that at times you do have to be a counselor. You have to really, as things escalate, you have to learn how to de-escalate it. How have you gotten better just managing that portion of the client communication?
People say I'm a very patient person, and my patience is what allows me, I guess, to do what we do in building these high-end custom homes like y'all do. And I enjoyed the client relationship part of it. I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed the hand-holding process, and I enjoy working with these clients from start to finish. And at the end of a job, started as clients and you end as friends. So I enjoy that part. As I've gotten into it, it'll be 10 years this past August that we've been in business. And I would say um, the emotional part for most of our clients, because it's the biggest investment a lot of these people make in their lives. So there's times where it gets stressful. There's times where, the stress really isn't anything to stress about, but the decisions can be overwhelming. And then, you get the emotional side into it. And I've walked into a house and I won't mention her name, but if she listens to this, she'll know who she is. I walked in and she was crying over the wrong paint color that she picked for the kitchen. And I won't say her name. I'm like, it's just a paint color. You can always repaint it. It's not the end of the world. And a lot of times we have to go in there and just calm them down and make them realize, like, hey, it's a paint color, or hey, it's, you know, a faucet, or it's something that can be changed out. It's not, it's never the end of the world. The house is never burning down. And that tends to sometimes calm them down and get them back to where, they're not volunteers and, I guess, back on track, I should say.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's a really good example in the sense that, I can relate. I've had clients, I don't want to say go sideways, but they get frustrated about certain mistakes that
Mhm.
happen and overlook. We had one experience, I won't share the name either, but, the trade partner came in and they installed a finish that wasn't approved and they were frustrated because my superintendent wasn't there at the time. And my superintendent even said, hey, even if I was there, like this is coming out of, the hopper. Like there's no way I would have known. It had to do with their swimming pool. And he's like, I would have had no idea until it cured. Like it's not something I could have caught. I mean, some things we just missed, but at the end of the day, to your point, it was something we could easily chip out, resolve. Like you could repaint. I mean, us in the business, it's kind of easy to work through like our understanding of projects. And we sometimes forget that the client doesn't have an understanding of how the process works. And a lot of time that frustration happens because they just don't know. As you look in your
Correct.
career, is there, not every project goes great, Robert. They just don't. So, as you look back at all the homes and projects that you've done over the years, is there like a phase of construction where clients have been most frustrated? Is there maybe an expectation that wasn't set? Where do you kind of see that pain point most often with clients?
I would say, I mean, I try to set the expectation up front, and sometimes no matter how much we set that expectation, sometimes it doesn't always resonate with the client on, what we're trying to relay to them. Like, hey, it's going to take 15 months, it's going to take 24 months, or, whatever that expectation may be. Sometimes it's kind of in one ear and out the other. Um, so managing that expectation is something we try really hard on. Um, but I feel like when we get to the end of a project, just like everybody, I'd probably be the same way if I was building a house. They're ready to be done. They're ready to move in. They're over it. The fun part's done. Like, let's get the thing done, wrapped up, move in. And that's when they hit the, not the panic button, but like kick it into full gear and try to build 20% of the house in 6 weeks. To me, that's where the frustration or the fun's gone now part is out the window. And it's just like, do whatever you can to get me in this house as quick as you can. To me, that's kind of been our, where we find it just starts to get to where, hey, let's get in and get out and be done. Projects always end well. And once they move in, all that goes out the window and everybody's happy. But for us, it's always that home stretch, getting them moved in, that seems to be um, kind of the most stressful part for a client.
It's funny because as you're sharing that, I could totally relate because I think not only myself but every client, even interior designers, I'm sure that are listening, that trying to balance around the contractor, get furniture installed. There's still trades in the house, and they're like, I need my space to finish. When you get photographers, I mean, you're trying to balance so much, and you have a client that's like at the end of the ropes, where now it's definitely a transaction more than this relationship, and they're like, I'm ready. Um, to move in. And we've looked at that because this has been a pain point for us too, just working through that closing process. What does that have you altered your closing process? What does that look like now to make sure that you have, I don't want to say a buffer, but like a realistic time frame to finish it so you can have a clear, line as far as what's punch, what's warranty, what's from the punch list, and make sure it's a
Yeah.
clean handoff.
And that's something that I'm working on, I guess, behind the scenes, because I don't know about Arizona, but in Louisiana, there's no law for residential single family homes with a clear defined, in commercial here, you have, $50,000 in retainage withheld. It goes into escrow. And once you get substantial completion, you have 60 days to release that retainage. There's very clear defined milestones that in the commercial world that enable those gray areas in residential that we have to be clearly defined. So I'm working with somebody a good friend of mine who's a lobbyist to help. I don't know if I should be saying this on the podcast, but I am. Propose a bill that will help identify laws in single family home residential construction that clearly defines, substantial completion. Because what is substantial completion in residential? Uh, there's really not, I don't have a really good answer for that. I mean, I could tell you in my mind, it'd probably be when you get the CO, but when you get the CO, in a client's mind, they think, all right, I got the CO, it's time to move in. Whereas really the substantial completion mark in residential should be kind of maybe the start of the punch list, or there's no, uh, there's just nothing that clearly defines these milestones that would set, hey, we got substantial completion. Now we can go to punch list, and punch list is 30 days. And then once you do this initial punch list, whether it's 1 page long, some a dollar value to it or whatever it may be, once you complete that, then you release retainage. And then anything after that falls into the warranty. Um, Making that happen without any sort of, call it law, even if it's in the contract, has been kind of a pain point for us, trying to make a client understand that, hey, even though we're done with the project and we've been paid, contractually, we're still here for a year to warranty our work. And for a lot of our clients, I can name a handful. One that you probably know, Kim Mulkey, LSU women's basketball coach,
Mhm.
who has become quite the famous figure around here.
For sure.
You know, she calls me she'll be like, Robert, honey, need some Christmas lights. I'll go over there and hang your Christmas lights. Um, so we like to take care of our clients for as long as they're in a Scheffy home, but at the same time, getting to the point to where we can roll them into that phase sometimes is difficult. Like you're saying, just because there's just no clear, definite, you know, line to say, hey, we can roll into the next phase.
I'm glad you brought that up, Robert. And you keep referencing the expectation, and and you mentioned like if we can come up with a clear definition, which is you're taking it to a whole new level. Some of us are just thinking internally, maybe selfishly. You're looking at something with the lobbyists to try to can we figure something out, industry wide to create some common ground here, which I think is incredible of you, and not shocking, based on what I know of you, but as I think about just that closing process, and you mentioned the expectation side, I I've always looked back at clients that I've had in the past, and all of us are like, oh, we've had this like terrible client, we've had this terrible experience, they're so tough. And I always look back at that relationship and I'm like, was the client that terrible, or did I fail to communicate? Did I fail to set good expectations? Did I not lay out the process? Did I not know what I don't know well enough, right, to advise them these pitfalls? And then that's where it started getting contentious, where they felt they had to micromanage me or run my company or run the project. There's no doubt that every once in a while you get a bad apple out there, but I think in most cases that relationship becomes severed because we don't do a good job set expectations. And what I realize now, and especially as we're discussing the closing process, Robert, is that early in my career, I really didn't have a defined process. You mentioned substantial completion as C of O, which a lot of people may use that as some sort of template or standard, but it's really hard to know what that means because even at C of O, both you and I know you can get a final inspection fairly early
Mm-hmm.
and the house is not ready,
Not
for
ready
someone
to
to
move
move in.
in.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's like the bare minimum for the city to say, yeah, someone can safely live here without dying, right? Um, but the whole point of this is I've learned now that as I tell a client that, hey, we have a timeline from C of O, and that timeline's in our contract, and that's our moving date because now we have the time applicable to do a final punch with you, to finish our punch list, to have furniture in, to do the startups for the swimming pool and interior finish of the pool, finish the landscaping, do the home automation, because we're using in most cases Crestron and catcher lighting, and there's a lot of automation that goes in. And so I've learned now that if the clients know, hey, okay, if once we get C of O, that's kind of my critical path date, and then I have 30 days after that. Well, now I'm not fighting the client saying, you got C of O, I want to move it tomorrow. It's like, as long as my schedule lines up, we have the time necessary to finish that closing. And so I agree with you there that it really comes down to expectations, as most things do in any
Yeah.
relationship.
And we do schedules and we'll have contracts and it might be a 15-month contract or a 2-year contract, but all of a sudden they want to move in 20 months and not 24 months. So even though we have that all outlined in the contract, um, sometimes there's just something happens and they got to get in earlier, um, which, even though we signed a contract for a certain amount of duration, that almost goes out the window because now they have a new deadline that we have to meet. Um, and again, I guess it goes back to managing that expectation and me doing a better job of saying, hey, contractually, we're bound to this, so we don't have to do that. But I'm not that type of person. I like to uh, exceed expectations and not, I mean, I'm a people pleaser, but I've gotten much better over the years. But doing a better job of just being firm and saying, hey, you know, we need this extra 2 months or we need this extra month in order to properly close it out. Because a lot of times people want to move in before you can properly close it out. And, back to expectations, I think that's something that I can work on, definitely get better at and making sure they don't move in with a million workers still, going in and out.
I love that you share that because I think you and I align that way, that we definitely want to always, lack of a better word, you want to be the hero, right? You want to, exceed, you want to get them early. And um, it's funny because I've had guests on before, and I think the Sean Van Dyke was someone I had early on who you probably know, Sean Van Dyke. And Sean was always big on you need to learn to say no. And, too many times I think you and I say yes when, there could be consequences. It could like turn sideways. And the whole point being, I know early in my career, people be like, well, I need to be done by this date because, we have a wedding or we need to be in for the holidays or kids graduating or whatever it may be, right? We've all heard that. And it's not that we've heard it. The reality is our clients are living their life currently and their kids are aging and they want to be in their home and life events are happening. And so you're trying to create this dream project for them. And I, I learned fairly early on after letting some people down that, I think it's better off for me to say no at day one, saying, I know I'm not going to finish by next Thanksgiving for your wedding. So how about you just plan on getting married? We'll find a different venue. And then in January, you can move into your home. And they're disappointed, but at least you're not in October with invitations out and the wedding happening. And all of a sudden it's
Mhm.
like, okay, we're not going to make it. And now it's just, there's no hope of bringing that relationship back.
Yeah, no, no, that is similar experience with that, and you know, making the deadline for a wedding was a goal, but we fell short of that, and tensions got high. Um, but it was always a goal. Tried my damnedest to make it, and did everything I could to make it, and fell short of it. And looking back on it, should have raised the flag a little earlier. But in my mind, I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I know I can do it. Um, and it didn't happen. So yeah, there's a lot of times where there's a wedding or holiday or Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas is coming up, New Year's. You're going to lose a good month
Month, a
from
good month.
Christmas to New Year's just because people are taking off. So I've gotten better at no holiday move-ins.
Yeah.
Um, but again, yeah, it just comes back to setting that expectation and making sure they understand how long it's going to take, what it takes to get there. And sometimes people don't fully understand, especially y'all's projects that y'all do. There's a lot of detail that goes into them, and it's not just something you can buy off the shelf or do overnight. I mean, there are things that take a lot of time and a lot of I'm gonna call it planning before the meeting before the meeting to actually do the work. Um, there's a lot of that takes place in some of our projects, and I know a lot of your projects. So um, those are things that sometimes clients don't always think about.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, you may be familiar that I do this coalition summit with Nick Schiffer from Menace Builders and Tyler from TRG Home Concepts and Morgan from Construction Style. And so anyone that's attended has heard this story. But one thing that's really helped out, Spencer Neal, who works for me, he's, Spencer's my director of construction. And he had worked in really high end commercial for a long time, doing incredible projects. And what's very common in the commercial world is they do these pool plan meetings. And so they bring in all the subcontractors in the conference room and they're building the schedule. So he worked for a structural steel company. So he's in a conference room with the mechanical contractors, the masons, the concrete guys, and the GC. And they're going to do this very collaborative, intensive, a lot of synergy in there to build the schedule. The whole point being is that it's easy for the GC as you look at this big project and say, okay, we're going to build this hotel. My client wants it done in 2 years. Yeah, I could do it in 22 months, right? Because you're like, I just want to be a nice guy. 24 months, 22 months, what's the big difference? Without realizing there's millions of pieces and parts and employees and holidays. Things are very loose in a way. But as you sit there in these meetings and this collaboration, you put the schedule on the board and you realize we don't have a lot of slack. We don't have a lot of fluff
Mhm.
in here. And the point being, when I hired him, um, he implemented these strategies in our residential firm. So we started doing this in residential construction. And the point being, a couple of years ago, we're doing this hillside project. It's really complicated. They had this really long driveway up the mountain. And for me, my clients, probably similar to you, Robert, if you have out of town clients, my clients look at this in seasons because in Phoenix, they don't want to be here in the summer. They want to be here in the winter, right? Because Phoenix is amazing in the winter. So especially in other parts of the country as they come in. And so we looked at the schedule and we're like, this would be 24 months. And the client's like, I really want it done in 21 or 22 because now I can be here for the holidays and I can enjoy the good weather. And Brad 1.0, pre Spencer, right? Like Robert, you're saying, we'd be like, yeah, no problem. 21 months, that should be plenty of time. Like, I'll have you in, we'll hit that. And truth be told, we built this schedule beforehand as the client was leaning on us for this date. And we realized there's no way we're doing it before 24. I mean, if we hit everything on track, we'll be at 24, maybe 25. And fortunately, I was able to have that conversation with the client up front, and it was disappointing for sure. But the project went forward, and we hit that timeline, and we finished at 25 months within that range. Realizing that there's no way I could have shaved off 4 months, and part of it
Uh-huh.
is just as you and I have gotten older in our career, it's not just saying no. It's just you understand a little bit more, and we've hurt ourselves too many times trying to be the hero.
Yeah, and we've gotten, we've started kind of phasing projects differently. Like, I don't know how y'all do it there, but here we might start, we'll have a second floor done, you know, call it ready to be punched out, and we'll rip it off while we're still working on the first floor and kind of working our way back from, back of the house towards the front of the house. And that kind of allows us to pack more trades on top of each other. And while we're working on the first floor, we're punching out the second floor. And that was a idea from a designer I work with, which was a great idea. It worked. It definitely puts a little more stress on the subs because there's just a lot more people working on top of each other, and they're kind of jumping from area to area. But it seemed to, on some of these larger projects, be an effective way to try to accelerate or make up for some of that lost time with, because like you said, when we do a schedule from, the very beginning of a project, it's going to take 2 years. You're assuming everything's going to go perfect. Well, nothing
Right?
goes perfect. There's, it's everybody's going to show up that day, and there's going to be nobody sick. Nobody's car broke down. Nobody. You're assuming kind of in a perfect world that it's all going to work out, and that never happens. So it kind of helps you make up for some of that lost time. And we're doing it again on another project right now, and it seems to be working. I need to perfect the coordination of it a little better, I think, to make it less. I mean, it's always chaos, but more organized chaos. Um, but it's definitely helped kind of accelerate that schedule from that standpoint.
Yeah, I love that. And what's amazing, Robert, you mentioned, you're working for the LSU basketball coach. I mean, you've done some incredible projects. I love for it. I know you're going to leave all your information so everyone can follow you after the podcast. 10 years you've only been in business. I mean, what's your secret to have the growth and complexity of projects and the network and the reputation you have in such a short time?
Shoot, I hate talking about myself, but I guess I'm from Baton Rouge, so I was born and raised here. Went to LSU, graduated in construction. Went to work with MAP Construction, who's a commercial GC here in town, and also has, I think, office in Houston, Atlanta, New Orleans, and a couple other places, and gained that corporate commercial experience. And then Stuart, Stu is what I call him. His office is right there. He's my director of operations, and he also worked at MAP where I worked. So we both come from the same commercial background. We both learned the same systems, procedures um, from MAP, and kind of took that, brought it here, and had to tweak it because what you do in commercial is different than residential. But having that commercial experience with MAP, I think, really helped kind of set the stage for getting into residential, knowing some systems, procedures, and um, how to keep things organized from project management to procurement to change orders and the financial side. Um, and then just, I went to work for a residential builder after that for 4 years in the high end custom homes, and went out on my own and took off faster than I could have ever imagined. And I don't know how or why, I just wanted to go out there and do the right thing and build a great house and put everything I got into it. And I think, my mom always says, like, I put my entire heart into all these projects, which I do. And, I think that on top of client service is something that was very beneficial in the growth. And being from Baton Rouge, I guess having connections here also helped, and just building a damn good house. I mean, I think that's really what kind of got us to where we are. And obviously, I got great people behind me: Stuart, Tony, Paul. They're phenomenal, and my wife Hillary is, she says the woman behind the man. She's behind the scenes, but she is the one that got me all set up with this right here, to make sure it all looked pretty. Um, and she also has her real estate license, but she's was a vital part in the growth of it, and it just started, grew, and I never really had time to pause, reflect, and uh, perfect things or see how I got from here to here. It just kept going and going and going and going, and I just kept climbing and climbing and climbing.
It's interesting that you also started. You have a degree in construction management, right, from LSU.
Hmm.
Sounds like, and which is catered commercial. You work commercial. Um, I've known a lot of very successful residential contractors. A lot of them were peers of mine in college, and others in my Builder 20 that have started commercial. Why do you feel that that gave you such an advantage? Because residential is the Wild West, there's no doubt. But why do you feel that the commercial background and education gave you such an advantage?
I really think I went to school for construction management. If I could do it over again, I'd probably go to school, and I got a minor in business. I'd probably major in business.
Yeah.
And then I really think it in construction would be great if, you did 2 years of business, and then maybe you would have to get businesses involved or local businesses involved with the colleges, but go work for a company for 2 years and gain that field experience. To me, that would be the uh, route I would go if that was an option, which it's not, but I think that would be the best way to gain the business, because it is a business, and then gain the field experience, because what you learn in school is not what you learn in the field. I mean, I remember when I first started, mechanical guy called and he's like, "Hey, well, where do you want the return air?" And I'm like, "What's a return air?" Just because, in school they're not really teaching you the ins and outs of how to build. I mean, they're teaching you, but it's more
So high
big
level.
picture.
So high level.
Exactly. And the programs we were using to schedule don't even exist anymore. But I think the business minor definitely helped, and then I think the commercial corporate helped, just from a seeing how they operate, seeing how they do pre-construction, and then they have a pre-con turnover where you turn it over to the project manager, and that way the project manager knows all your subs, knows all your we would have turnover binders, and we'd go to those turnover meetings and literally go through every page of the drawing, identify every scope. There would be a bust, here and there in an estimate, and um, where that bust might be, and if we had to buy it out, what we did to buy it out, or got somebody to pick it up. But I think learning those type traits or skills or whatever you want to call them, I think helped come into the residential side, to where you don't have a set of specs. You don't have an estimator sitting there with you. You don't have a pre-con team. You don't have a project engineer. You don't have an admin. You don't have all these support staffs. You're doing it all on your own. So I was able to kind of take everything that I learned from Matt and kind of condense it into a residential type, call it book, I guess, on how I think I should run my residential uh, construction business.
It's interesting because you mentioned, learn by absorption. What's interesting about the commercial world is the formality, right? The organization, the systems, the call it the legal protection, because you can be sued. I mean, commercial is a wholly different world. The PPE, right? How the safety side, the scheduling. You mentioned you have PM. So from like a structural component, you see these commercial companies that are big companies, and not, I mean, you and I, as small business owners, aren't going to be set up at that level, but there is a level of understanding of company culture and systems and how to pass the baton and departments and how you can integrate that into a small company, even if it's just two people or three people or seven, how you can delineate that or delegate that. But what's interesting, Robert, is like, as you speak about your college experience, I would relate. It's interesting. I've been asked a lot from a lot of young people if college is necessary. And, going into construction, I don't feel it is, but to your point, I think if you are going to do college, I look back and I'm like, I would have taken business and marketing. Like, if I could take a marketing class, business class, heck, I mean, I tell people, if you could get an MBA, if you can understand accounting and financials and how to read a balance sheet, and you mentioned, profit and inventory and cash flow and job costing. I mean, all these things. If you understand that at a sophisticated level, now you come in and run the business. Uh, you can learn construction. You could go work for a commercial GC and learn where to put, the return, the return error, and manage all that.
Exactly.
Like, what is a cut-in line? Some of these new guys have no idea what a paint cut-in line is, and so it's like the technical side you can learn, but I mean, it's the business acumen that so many of us miss and just don't have an understanding of.
Correct. Especially in construction too. I mean, there's you know, a lot of cash in, a lot of cash out. I mean, it's a lot of moving pieces and parts. And if you don't have somebody on top of that, um, accounting, I mean, I know y'all use Builder Trend, and I was going to ask you
Yeah.
how y'all use Builder Trend to track y'all's, I guess, job cost or estimate versus actual, or because I know it seems to QuickBooks, do y'all fully use Builder Trend to track y'all's financial health on every project?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we do. And what I do love about Builderchin, and I know they'd be fine with me sharing this, is that their obsession, like probably you and I, to better our companies, right? Like, you, Robert, every day are looking for better ways to improve, Scheffy Construction, as I am here at AFT. And Builderchin's the same. When I first made the move in integration, it was harder than I thought it would be, and not because of Builderchin, but just internally to move, software platforms for accounting and tracking financial, because you and I have these long tails of construction, right? I mean, it's not like I'm doing a 4 month build. I mean, some of my builds are 24 months, 30 months. And so
Yeah.
as you're controlling WIP and year to year and you're moving, like, you have projects under construction, is very complicated. And because I'm predominantly cost plus, Build a Trend to this point has had some features that they need to add and do to make cost plus like extremely practical for us as a general contractor. Now, when it comes to like lump sum and maybe like a GMP, like they excel, like Builder Trend financials are set up. And so for where Builder Trend is today, they've been exceptional for us to run WIP reports and job costing and go back. There are some things based on what the client sees in the owner portal and how we do the cost plus that Builder Trend's working on. I just had a call with them 2 weeks ago with our entire financial team, and they're actively working all the things we brought up. These, I don't want to say red flags, but these things that are limiting us on our communication with the client, they were aware of and they're already fixing. So Builder Trend will be there shortly to have really the main issues that we currently have are going to be resolved, which is great. But to answer your question, I think the answer is, Robert, like, I'm very fortunate to have an incredible financial team behind me that coordinates. And I think one thing that's unique about AFT is I have project coordinators, and all of my project coordinators, think of it like they're mini PMs. I mean, they're doing the purchasing, they're doing cabinet sign-offs, window sign-offs, writing all the contracts, the scopes, change orders. They're reviewing all the AP and AR. So like all the bills that come in, they're coordinating with my financial team. So you have a couple sets of eyes, and then as that goes into Build a Trend and connects with QuickBooks, it allows us some really good visuals and KPIs on a monthly basis so that we can track costs. But what does that look like for you?
I was going to say, so how many, I guess, PMs or superintendents or, I guess, guys that, because it sounds like your PMs handle their own job costs?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that. So when you look at my org chart, I think one thing that's unique about us, because we roughly 30 employees, and so as you look at this, I mean, Spencer's my director of construction, so he's overseeing a lot of pretty much the whole operation along with me. And then I have Megan, who's a project manager, and she oversees the coordinators. So my title is a project coordinators. which we have, Presley and Janelle and Sue and Emily. Um, they are essentially a mini PM themselves. Their title is project coordinator, but they are all of the financials are running through them. All the change orders run through them. A lot of the client communication runs through them. Any RFIs, any submittals, paint samples, cabinet samples, like they're coordinating all this. So my field can just run the field. So I don't have call it middle management or like a field PM, because all of my supers are running a couple projects and they have a coordinator that is assigned to them on each project that's handling a lot of that day-to-day behind the scenes financial side. So my supers can just manage the project, the quality, the build schedule. And so because my coordinators are so strong and have learned so much about construction, they can handle a lot of that. So it creates minimal middle management, minimal overhead, but like everyone has the tools, to excel out in the field.
Yeah. And then you just oversee the entire operation.
Right. So I'm
Is it?
looking at, yeah, I'm coordinating financials every month. I'm looking at
Yeah.
cash flow. I'm looking at backlog. I'm looking at resources, something Spencer and I look at. I mean, I would imagine with you, I mean, we're competitively bidding every project. We have quite a few under construction. We have a lot in backlog. Even with that said, I mean, we're bidding and we have multiple trade partners working on certain scopes, but there are times that they overlap. Like I could have the same trade partner performing concrete or cabinetry on 3 jobs simultaneously. So we have to really coordinate, he and I,
Mhm.
to make sure that structurally the trade partners can fulfill like our demand. That way the
Yeah.
supers, because otherwise the trade has Paul calling them and Ryan calling them, and they have to be at two places at once, which doesn't work. So we're trying to oversee
Yeah.
just, from a higher level.
Yeah. And we run into the same problem. We use same subs for 10 years on every project, and got to make sure they don't, about a couple months ago, we had 3, 4 projects closing out at one time, and 2 of them were 2-year projects, and one of them was 1 week took over, and then another one was one in New Orleans for an unnamed uh, football player. But anyway, uh, we were closing all these out at one time, and it was, we need an electrician here, but we also need them there. So
Mhm.
um, I was trying to do my best to make sure we could have him everywhere we needed him and still make those deadlines, where I feel like I see y'all succeed. And I mean, I've looked up to y'all for years, and I tell Stuart, I'm like, dude, Brad's like who I want to be. I mean, they do what we're trying to do in Baton Rouge, which is, you mass produce, I would say, high end custom homes, which is not easy at all, because Baton Rouge is much smaller. But here, they hire Scheffy Construction. They expect to see me. They expect to talk to me. Stuart does a great job of um, relieving a lot of that from me as well. But at the same time, they still want to see me. They still want to talk to me. They still want to see me on site. So it's been hard for me to pull back and really just look at the you know big picture, um, because these clients just Baton Rouge is much smaller, but I guess they want more of the person's name that's on the sign. Not that Stuart and Tony and Paul are completely capable of handling those projects, but if I'm not involved in every project and I get a phone call, um, I've got to know what's going on, because they're going to call and ask me a question, and a lot of times I have to pick up the phone and say, Stu, what's going on over here? Um, so it's been hard for me to kind of take that step back, and make those people, or make our clients, realize it's okay that I'm taking a step back. I'm still here, still overseeing your project. I still know the ins and outs. But to me, from a growth standpoint, that's kind of been our pain point, is to take that next step in how we can, you know, relieve. Because I do a lot of the stuff, you're saying those project coordinators do. I mean, a lot of times I'm sending cabinet shop drawings. I'm going to the meetings, meeting with them on cabinets. I'm meeting with clients, doing walkthroughs. Like, I'm very hands-on throughout a lot of these projects, and trying to change that, which I guess where I'm going with that is it's been a difficult transition to kind of take that next step. It seems like y'all have it nailed down, so I'm trying to imitate what y'all are doing there and bring it down here to Baton Rouge.
Well, I can understand. I mean, you have this great way of communicating. You have this awesome beard, that looks great.
You like
So of
that?
course, yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course, I can't grow it that nice. I'm a little envious over here, but of course the clients want more Robert time. I can't blame them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's deer season, so it's getting a little. My wife says it gets a little too long, but during deer season, we gotta let it grow out. So
well, that's amazing. I mean, but in fairness, I think that's one thing I do enjoy about social media. I mean, like you and I are completely opposite ends of the country, yet we can follow each other, admire each other, take applicable things that each other's doing, and apply in our business. And one of the reasons I love the podcast because I get to interview a business owner such as yourself, Robert, and have you for an hour dedicated to me, and I get to download all this great information that I could go apply tomorrow. But what about for you, the financial side? How do you approach the financial management in construction?
so we use QuickBooks. We've been trying to integrate Builder Trend to sync up with QuickBooks, but I mean, we are cost plus.
Yeah,
I will say with cost plus, you mentioned change orders. Well, technically on cost plus, there really shouldn't be a change order.
right,
Um, and where I feel like cost plus turns into a hybrid of lump sum cost plus is you give a client a budget, and that budget is your basis of where you are throughout the project. But once they have that budget, those numbers that are in that budget, they they remember them.
yeah,
So it makes costs plus, like I said, a little bit of a hybrid because I've had clients that say, "Oh, well, you price this in the budget, so why are we over the budget?" Well, you pick something that's over the budget. It's cost plus, but then we'll get our feet held to the fire on some things, and some things, client might play into their favor, even though it's cost plus. Um, so we're working on trying to figure out the best balance on managing the cost plus and call it billing the cost plus. I mean, we do we use the AIA G whatever pay app form, and we'll dump our invoices into that format and let our invoice total calculate the percentage complete versus, you know, filling out the percentage complete to get your uh, total amount billed. So um, we try to put it into a format to where you're not just getting a stack of invoices with a cover sheet saying, "Hey, here's all your invoices for the month. Pay it. Hope you can make sense of it." We try to compile it into that schedule of values that basically matches that budget line item. So that way, they can really see kind of that estimate versus actual on a line item by line item. Um, but the cost plus has been, like I said, difficult on managing, um, to a client. What is cost plus? What's not cost plus? If there is a change order, there is a change order, and you should make them aware. But theoretically, it's cost plus, so it's the cost of the job.
hmm
Um, so those are kind of some pain points we're working through with how to better, I guess, manage that expectation of what cost plus truly means.
How how's your customer base been receptivized to cost plus? One thing that I struggle with is that it's pretty rare for a builder such as you and I, as you start doing these really expensive homes to be lump sum, it becomes very tough for clients. I mean, occasionally,
So,
yeah, there'll be a client or two that's like, "Hey, just tell me the price and I'm good." I think that's more rare because clients, at this level, when they're spending this kind of money, most of them, at least my experience has been, most of them are like, "Hey, Robert, I'm hiring you because I believe in Scheffy Construction. I know the product you're putting out. Like, I know you have to be paid to run your business." Like, they're pretty open minded that you need to stay in business and serve them, and so there's a fee associated by hiring you. And as long as they know what that is, it's great. Even if it's cost plus, like it's pretty well structured, and then the costs are the costs. And so I found that all my clients prefer that scenario, even though, to your point, it's a little bit labor intensive for monthly invoicing. It's a little bit more labor intensive to set proper expectations and communication and barriers, as you mentioned, because change orders are change orders, but they're really not change orders. You're kind of just trying to keep them up to speed of where their budget is over time.
Yeah.
So, have you ever contemplated changing that, or what does that look like for you in your market?
So we've been cost plus for probably 7 years now. When I first started, did lump sum because I came from commercial and we hard bid lump sum all day
Mhm.
long. Quickly realized lump sum was not the answer to high end custom homes and moved to cost plus. So everything we do is cost plus, and 99% of our work's negotiated. We don't really hard bid or we don't bid against anybody. We like to get locked in on the front end, work with the design team, architect, throughout the, drawing phase, conceptuals, do budgets. That way when we get to a construction set of drawings, we know we're within that client's budget, or if there's any value engineering that needs to be done. We work with the designer or architect to do things to where you're not having to cut square footage from the house, which means you would have to completely redo the drawings. Um, Here lately, with price increases from COVID and all that, value engineering has become a lot more um, standard in pretty much every project we do. And I mean, we've shaved 500,000 off a project. We've shaved 800,000 off a project. Now, sometimes the client might add it back in. Um, but to me, working with the team up front, um, from the, concepts through the DDs to the CDs, to me I think it allows for a much better product for the client because they know what they're getting, they know what the costs are. Nobody's fluffing their numbers. Um, you have Marvin clad windows. Nobody's using vinyl windows. You know what your allowances are, and most importantly, you know what you're getting within those allowances or within that price point. Because I'm sure people ask you, "Hey, can you build a house for 500 a foot?" And yeah, I can build a house for 500 a foot, but they have to be okay with what comes within that 500 a foot. And sometimes that's difficult explaining to people, yeah, we can build a house for 300 a foot, but you got to be good with what comes in 300 a foot. Um, so, back to the cost plus, starting with clients in that beginning phase does help with the cost plus, I guess, contract when you get into construction because you kind of work through all those details throughout the DD and CD phase, if that
Yeah,
makes
it's interesting.
sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And that's, I think, and maybe this goes to this question then, Robert. I mean, for you, as you're looking at your projects now, what you have in backlog, what's upcoming, are most of your projects negotiated? Are you bidding against others? What does that um, that pre-construction part of your business look like?
So they're negotiated. We haven't, I guess, hard bid or bid against multiple contractors in several years. Again, I think it provides the best product for the client, and it helps. Also, I think at the end of the day, when the project's done, that budget number they want to be at, I think it's been very successful in helping them, you know, achieve on or around that budget. I mean, there are times where people splurge and go over budget, but it just creates for more of a open book. Everybody's honest. There's no hidden costs. Nobody's, not trying to make more money. I'm just trying to, here's our fee. Here's what it is. Here's what it costs. Um, and it's worked well. It's worked very well. And it from a pre-con phase, we do spend more time on it just because we're working through the DDs, through the CDs. So we're doing conceptual budgets, then a little more, call it design development budgets. And then by that time, they have a good idea where they're going to be. And then the architect can take it from there and know, hey, we can design a $3 million house and not design a $5 million house because their budget's $3 million. I mean, there's been a lot of times where we'll get a set of plans. price it. It's $2 million, and the client said, "Oh, well, I was told it was only going to cost 800,000." There's a lot more of that happens here than you would think. So it eliminates that, but the negotiating has just been something that we've been able to do, and I think people trust in us through the process and um, quality of the builds, and we've got a great team, and um, yeah, I mean, I think just getting people a Chevy home is what's allowed us to be able to do that, and then we are working on a 19 lot development. It's on 15 acres in the middle of Baton Rouge, and
Oh,
very excited about that. Actually posted it on Instagram today, where they were burning some trees, and we had a burn permit, and there were some angry neighbors, but we have a burn permit, so we're doing it all legally. But yeah, very excited about that. It's going to be 19 lots. It's going to be gated, half acre to almost an acre, um, and that's something we've been working on for about a year, and just got done with the clearing, and hopefully rolling into the infrastructure here pretty soon, and doing it with a great team behind me, and um, be the first one I've done development wise from you know start to finish, and it's been something really exciting and something I'd like to. It's not going to be the last one, I hope. So
I love that you're getting into development. Outside, development is going to be pretty straightforward, and with the sophistication you have as a builder and years in business, I know you're going to excel in that development. Um, do you track your lead generation? Like, where are business development? Are they coming from social media, from architects? Where are you driving the business development arm?
it comes from social media, phone calls, text, emails. I mean, dude, I get calls from Florida to Texas to. I mean, I get a lot of calls in New Orleans. I mean, I've gotten calls from Arizona. I mean, I get calls from all over, uh, seeing if I could, build a house in Denver, Colorado, which would love to do if it was possible, but it's not. But it comes from, I guess, social media and just word of mouth and referral, and you know, been fortunate to just have the phone keep ringing and people keep calling. So,
It's incredible. So, what keeps you up at night now?
what keeps me up? I can wake up in the middle of the night and think about 100 things every night that keeps me up. What did I forget to order, or shit, I forgot to call this guy to come tomorrow. But no, I mean, I love what I do. I really do. You know, construction is stressful at times. I mean, we're put under a lot of pressure and deadlines, and like I said, we're dealing with a lot of people that are spending. It's the biggest investment in their life, and there's a lot of emotions that go into that. But you know, I enjoy doing it, and it's what gets me up in the morning at 4:30 every morning. Um, but keeping me up at night is probably like, you know, all right, I got to here, so what's next? Like my wife always says, I get to a certain point, and then I'm over it, and then I'm ready for the next thing, and then get to that point, and then I'm ready for the next thing. So I guess keeping me up at night now is, how do I get to Brad's level at AFT Construction? That's what's keeping me up at night now. 'Cause
Okay.
your model is my model, and if I could implement that here in Baton Rouge, that would be amazing because of what y'all guys have done. Excuse me, what y'all have done has been incredible. So,
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, we still have a long ways to go, but so what do you do for fun then? I mean, you mentioned why you're growing out your beard. So extracurricular, what are you doing?
so I do a lot of deer hunting. Actually, shot one with my bow this past weekend,
Congrats.
which was very exciting. I got a couple mounts around
Hmm.
here that you can't see. LSU football has been a big part of our life since growing up. So love
Hmm.
going to LSU games. They had their first light show versus Ole Miss this past weekend, which was pretty cool. I don't know if you saw it, but
I watched
they
the
had the
game.
purple.
That was a good game too. So
That was a very good game. But I mean, I love hunting. I love deer hunting. Spending time with obviously my wife and Curry. Let's see, our 3 year old. That's him right here. It's my wife
that's
Hillary and
awesome.
our daughter Curry.
That's awesome.
Um, so she keeps us busy nonstop as well. But man, it's work, family, hunting. My wife would probably say hunting, work, family, but it's really, I guess, family, work, hunting. I try to balance everything the best I can, but you know, I enjoy working, so I don't really consider working a job. Something I love to do. So I'm here a lot on the weekends, and wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. So
Well, as painful as construction be, there's a lot of truth to like if you love your job, you never work a day in your life, right? So
yeah.
you know,
What about you? What you do for fun over there in Arizona, where the weather is much drier and not as humid?
I'll tell you what, I'm definitely, I've lived in other parts of the country and I can appreciate the seasons, you know, living in, you know, I've been in cold weather in Indiana and Utah. And so I can appreciate the seasons, but I'll tell you what, I'm definitely an outdoor guy. I love summers in Phoenix, which is odd, but to me, I can go out and be with the kids and ride bikes. We can swim. I mean, I work in construction, so we're outside. It doesn't, I play golf all summer. I mean, I'll play golf at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, right? And it's 110 out. It doesn't phase me, and then the winters are awesome. So I love the sunshine. And, you know, lately my kids, you know, they love bike riding. So we're on bike rides all the time. I have 6 kids, you know, 5 daughters, 1 son. So they keep me pretty busy. My oldest daughter is going to be 21. So, you know,
Wow.
now it's fun. Yeah. It's fun as they've, you know, cause now you have the conversations like we were out at dinner last night with my oldest daughter and, you know, it's just kind of fun to be at a level like, hey, you know, now she's 20. It's not me trying to just be her parent or be her best friend, but it's like at this stage of life, like, what can I do better as a dad? Like, how can I be, you know, close to you as you know, are adulting? And she's doing so great. And I have another one in college. So it's pretty fun to see them shine. So for me, it's family, it's golf, and I still play in a few basketball city leagues. So,
There you
so
go.
I'm still playing basketball a few times a week, but I will say one thing: I'm a big sports fan, Robert, and one of my dreams is to get to LSU games. So when I make that happen, I'm going to hit you up and we're going to connect when I get out there. So
Let us know. We'll show you how to tailgate, and
I
it's
may
a
just have to look at a good game you're going to and say, "Give me an extra ticket, I'll pay you, and I'm flying
yeah.
out. And we're going to hang
I
out." So
mean, Alabama's probably the next big game. I think our next big home game, so that would be a good one to come to. But it's definitely something if you haven't been to. It's nothing like they say Saturday night in Tiger
nothing like
Stadium.
the
So
SEC. SEC does it
dude,
better than anyone
nothing
else.
like it. Yeah, nothing like it. So
Well, Robert, I mean, you've been
but yeah,
incredible, and I know you're busy. I don't want to take too much of your time. So where can our listeners find you?
what's that?
Where can our listeners find you as we close?
Where can they find me?
Yeah, like webs. Give us your social media website, all the ways to reach out to you, Robert.
So our website is www.scheffy.com, Scheffy. Instagram, Scheffy Construction. Um, shoot, email Robert at Scheffy.com. If you want my cell phone number, you can get it from Brad. Um, but I mean, Instagram, you know, pretty active on social media, and I enjoy doing my own social media and probably playing the annoying rap songs that some people don't like. But it's something I enjoy and something I do, and comes easy to me. So I would say social media. It's probably the best way to follow along our projects and you know, see what we're doing.
Well, Robert, you're the best. I appreciate you making time, and I believe this is your first podcast. You crushed it, man. You're awesome.
This was my first podcast, and if I was going to have a first podcast, it would be with you. So I feel honored for you inviting me, and you know, respect you as a person, business owner, you know, dad, everything. Looked up to you for years, so really like what you are doing, and like I always say, you're the goat. So,
You're too kind. Well, thanks, Robert. Appreciate you.
all right, man, thanks.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.